بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. Last week we were in the section in greater sins about sorcery and magic and these things, and inshallah we'll try to finish this chapter today. We left off with a riwayat from Sheikh Saduq that said that he related from Hisham that he went to Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, alayhi salam, Imam Qadim, and he said when he went with Imam Musa ibn Ja'far to a slave trader who came from the west. Imam selected a servant girl, but the trader refused to sell that girl. The next day, Hisham went alone and brought the slave girl. He bought her at a higher price, according to whatever the Imam instructed him to do. And the slave trader asked him who was that man who came with him the other day. So Hisham, he used taqiyya, and he said, I don't know too much and this, but he was from Bani Hashim. So the slave trader said, when I purchased this slave girl from somewhere far away in the West, uh the I was taking her with me when a woman stopped me and asked where I was taking her. So I said I had purchased her for myself, and she said that this girl wasn't made for me. She was destined for a man who would be the best of people in the world, and in the near future she will give birth to a son to whom the West and the East will be subservient or submitted to him. And with this prediction, this servant girl gave birth to Imam Rida alayhi salam. So this is one of these predictions that we were mentioning from the last class. Some people predict certain things. Could be right, could be wrong, but it's not certain knowledge that they have. So we cannot rely on people who are predicting things based on stars or other whatever means they use. So the next part of this book, he talks about astronomy and meteorology. So he says predictions regarding future events like fluctuation in prices of grains or wheat, or if it's going to be shortage or it's going to be abundant amount, whether it's going to rain a lot, whether it's not going to rain, whether they will have famine, whether they will have drought, all these type of things, good or bad. They base this knowledge on the effects of the things that they see in the heavenly bodies. Meteorology. So the author says it's permitted for the one who, if the one who is predicting only considers them a possibility and not a certainty, because the final authority or the final cause is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, how many times have we got something that says it will rain today? It's just a prediction, but maybe it doesn't rain at all. And sometimes we get a notice on our phone said today is going to be sunny. Then we go outside and it rains. It's only predictions because the ultimate effect of these things lies with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So one can make predictions, but we cannot consider it as an absolute thing. And he says there's no harm in predicting solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, and position of the stars and all of these things. And they're based on complicated calculations and predictions. They're usually true unless there's some mistake in their calculation. But he says the heavenly bodies, they follow well-defined laws and principles, and there's hardly any chance of wrong prediction in these things. But we have to say at the end of the day, the ultimate prediction or the ultimate cause or the ultimate end of these predictions, it lies in the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, on the other hand, to predict future events with belief that only the stars and heavenly bodies, without any divine will at all governing them, to say that this is absolutely the case, this is haram and some sort of magic. So the Sheikh said in Maqasib, book Maqasib, that predictions are of four types. The first one, it is not haram to predict the future of heavenly bodies and other phenomena like solar and lunar eclipses. The second one, it's also permitted to predict an occurrence if it is caused by the influence of the movement of the stars or by heavenly bodies coming near the earth, but it must not be considered a phenomenon independent of Allah's will. it should be looked at as the will of Allah. In other words, when someone says that when the comet passes near the earth, such and such a thing will happen by the permission of Allah. And the stars should not be considered as the ultimate cause of this phenomenon. Even if one makes this type of prediction without any experience or without any scientific knowledge, it's allowed because it's just a prediction. We don't say that it is absolutely correct. He says, as an example, for instance, they have a experience that it will rain at night when their animal comes down from the roof, for example, or it comes from the terrace inside of the house, because this thing has happened before. Every time the animal comes in, it means it's going to rain. So they just have something that they know. They say, okay, the dog came in from outside. It means it's going to have a storm or something like that. So their past experiences give them some sort of prediction that something might happen. And it's okay to say that, even if they don't have scientific knowledge, because they have experience from this thing. Like, for example, some older people, they say, my knees are starting to hurt a lot. And they say that means it's going to rain or it's going to have a storm, because every time their knee starts hurting, means that, it always rains. So they give a prediction, said, oh, it's going to rain soon, or we're going to have a big storm because my knees started hurting. So it's just a prediction, but it's not the ultimate cause is not that their knee hurts, that means it's going to rain. It means that it's just an indicator that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send rain. The third one is to attribute the future events solely to the influence of heavenly bodies is also considered haram by all the jurists. We have a lot of narrations about this. The fourth one, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, the one who believes an astrologer and a soothsayer has disbelieved in whatever was revealed upon Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we cannot go to astrologers and have them, or soothsayers, and say that, okay, whatever they say, this is definitely going to happen. It's just a prediction. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, cursed is the astrologer, and cursed is the soothsayer, and cursed is the magician. So these three groups of people were cursed by the tongue of Imam. Also, when Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam went to the Battle of Nahrawan, one of his men was expert in astrology. He told the Imam, don't do it. If you go now, I think that you won't succeed in what you're trying to do. For example, some people say that you will only succeed if you do it at this time. If you travel at this time, it's not good, and this and that. He was telling Imam, don't go. Imam Ali alayhi salam told him that if he thought that he could predict the auspicious and the inauspicious times of departure with accuracy, he was wrong. And he said, whoever believes in your prediction has denied the Quran, because according to Quran, success and defeat are all according to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a person has faith in the astrologer, he will not seek divine help and assistance when the prediction is favorable for him. In this way, he will not give sadaqah or nor pray for success, and he will eventually conclude that Allah controls nothing. So he would become a disbeliever. We mentioned this in last class. If someone knows that nothing will happen to him. He will be safe. Maybe he will not pray. Maybe he will not give sadaqah. But we know that if musibah or something is coming for a person, like a car accident or an illness or something like this, if they pay sadaqah, Allah will remove this thing from them. This is one of the means for that. But if they know they are safe, they won't give sadaqah. They only give sadaqah if they know that something bad is coming for them. If an astronomer predicts with the belief that his predictions are the final, they're subject to the final will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then there's no harm for one to pray to Allah for success when the prediction is good. And in case of an unfavorable prediction, invoke Allah's safety. So if someone said, you will have success in whatever you're doing, they should ask Allah for success, because the ultimate result is with Allah. Or if they say that, you won't be favorable in this thing that you're trying to do, they should pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for success and to avoid the hardship and to give sadaqah, for example, and leave it with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It says Nasruddin Tusi, during one of his journeys, stayed for the night at a watermill. The watermill was situated outside this town. Since it was hot that evening, he decided to sleep out in the open. But the owner of the mill told him that it would rain that night. So he looked at the sky, but he couldn't make out any sign of rain. So the owner of the mill said, I have a pet dog who comes down to the house when it's going to rain at night. So the guy, he didn't take his advice. Like, what is this man talking about? The dog goes inside, it's going to rain. And then he ended up spending the night out in the rain. And he was, amused by this incident that he encountered. So the guy was able to make prediction based on some experiences that he's noticed from things around him. And it's fine with that, but we have to know the ultimate result is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are four types of belief when it comes to these things. The first one, the author says, to believe that stars are the supreme controllers of the world. Obviously, this is haram. A person who has such a belief is kafir, whether he denies the creator or not. All the jurists are unanimous in this regard. Because if he says the stars are the controllers and Allah is the controller, then he's making the stars partner with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will be mushrik. The second, to believe that the heavenly bodies have been bestowed by Allah. The power to control the world is not kufr, but it is a foolish notion because we have no proof that the inanimate stars have any intelligence or will influence the world at all, either way, because everything is controlled by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The third type of belief is when a person admits that the stars have no intelligence and willpower, but says that Allah has decreed when the position of the stars will be in such a way, the following event will take place. It is the law of causation, like when the fire is brought near to something, it burns it. Though such a belief is proved correct most of the time, reason does not accept it to be unchangeable. For instance, or example, we can say that fire, when it comes close to something, it does burn the thing. But how can we? It's not all the time that case. How about when Nimrud threw Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam into the fire? Fire didn't burn him. Or when uh, when Imam Sadiq alayhi salam told his companion Harun al-Makki to enter into that oven and to sit. And it didn't burn him at all when he was having the discussion with a man from Khorasan about how come he doesn't rise up as he has 100 or 200,000 followers to support him. And he told Harun al-Makki to go into the oven. And, he said, how many people do you have like him? He's not even one of them. So we see the fire didn't burn him in that case. So it's not always the case. It depends on the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The fourth, to predict future events on the basis of heavenly occurrences is not haram according to most of scholars. For example, if the moon and Saturn come in a line, there would be a good rainfall. To interpret such heavenly phenomena is not haram, but such interpretations can be accurately given only by the ma'sumin. When what the meteorologists predict is based on incomplete part of this knowledge. We see that Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, the complete knowledge of stars cannot be acquired and incomplete knowledge is of no benefit. So to rely on something that is incomplete doesn't, yield certainty. So our aql goes against this. We should not rely on incomplete knowledge. And Imam says the complete knowledge of this cannot be known. So it shows us that this science is incomplete. And Imam says it has no benefit because it's not concrete. You can predict that it will rain next Wednesday. Maybe it rains, maybe it doesn't. You say snow is coming, maybe it snows, maybe it doesn't. We don't know. It's incomplete. It's only a prediction. So predicting is okay, but we cannot consider it as absolute. It says after enumerating the different types of astrological sciences, Sheikh al-Ansari, he says all these traditions imply that whatever the astrologers predict is based on deficient knowledge. They only conjecture and guess on the basis of a little bit of knowledge. People who consult them are not, they're usually not satisfied by the predictions, but it's possible that he may have experience regarding a particular event and may make an accurate prediction. So maybe he predicts right, maybe he predicts wrong. Sheikh Al-Ansari said it's better to refrain from consulting such people, and if they make a prediction, one should say it is only a possibility. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. So, you know, he said it's better to avoid these things. For example, going to astrologers, asking them, is it a good time to travel or not to travel, or do this thing or not do this thing? It's based on incomplete, the deficient knowledge. He says the deficiency and inaccuracy of astrological predictions can be gauged by the doubts and wrong predictions of the astrologers. The books of history have a lot of examples for this. He mentions that in the year 582 after Hijrah, 7 stars came together in one constellation. Abu Fazl Khawarizmi and other astronomers gave prediction that the whole world would be destroyed by a cyclone in this event. So the people took shelter, they hid in caves and different places to stay safe, and they also stored their food in order to escape this, cyclone. So at last, the date came, and then 9th of Jamadi al-Akhir, and there was no sign of any cyclone anywhere. It said not even a soft wind blew in the outside. People lit candles and they burnt without even being blown by a breeze. So the poets jumped to the amusing occasion and composed poetry regarding this situation. So we see that we had this too. Remember back in when it changed to the year 2000, everyone was saying that the world was going to end, or I remember some other occasion, one guy that was at the job I had, he said the world was ending, and I forgot which year this was. It was some sort of Mayan prediction. It must have been around 2012, I think it was. And he said, "Oh, the whole world was going to end." And he went out and had signs and said the world was going to end and everyone needed to repent and turn back to Allah. Well, I mean, it's a good message he had, but the world is not ending. I don't know why, if the world was going to end, he sold his car, he quit his job, he did all sort of other things. And I mean, what is the use of that money if you really believe the world is going to end? And then the date came, nothing happened, the world didn't end. And then he feels silly, he comes back to the job, and luckily they gave him his job back. But they did all of this based on some sort of prediction. The author says also a few years ago, there was a similar threat that had people of the world worried. It was predicted that the whole earth would be shaken due to the impact of a meteor. Some people dived underwater to escape the shock, but nothing happened at that time. And the meteor missed the earth by thousands of miles. So these predictions, they are incomplete, and people shouldn't, change their whole life and do everything based on incomplete knowledge. He says if a person is able, he says it comes down to next part, magic and miracles. There are two types. If a person is able to perform extraordinary acts due to his extreme taqwa and zuhud or abstinence, it is known as karamat. But if the said person is a prophet or imam, he is bestowed with this high station by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and subject to 3 conditions, they will be considered as a mu'jiza or a miracle. So we see from others that do miraculous things, it is called karamat. For example, one of the na'ib of imam or something like this is karamat. But when it is from ma'soom, as far as prophet or imam, it's called mu'jiza. So he said the 3 things. The first one, his claim should be acceptable to reason. But if his claim is illogical, whatever action he performs is magic, whether one can perceive the mechanics of this act or not. For example, it is an accepted fact by every Muslim that Nubuwwah came to an end with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that his divine law will be enforced all the way to Qiyamah. There's no prophet after him. We all accept that. So if someone claims that he is a prophet after this, his extraordinary acts that he is able to do to prove his claim, for example, will not be believed because we know that there is Prophet Muhammad's Khatam al-Nabiyin, the seal of the prophets. He would be deemed as a magician. Or a person claims imamat when, according to the belief of Tashayyu, there are only 12 imams, not 13, not 14. The first we know, Imam Ali alayhi salam, and then Imam Mahdi, Ajallah ta'ala farajahu sharif. So the person who claims this will be an imposter, even if he does some sort of magical act, for example. Similarly, is the position regarding the special representatives of Imam, who were four. If someone comes and says that he is a special representative, specific representative of the Imam, he cannot be believed. And whatever miracles he does or karamat that he shows, it will be considered as magic. Second thing, the person should possess the necessary qualification for being a prophet or an imam. For example, one of the qualities of being the imam or prophet, messenger is isma, infallibility. So he should not commit any sin, whether greater or lesser, before his prophethood or before his imamat or after. And he must be the most righteous and the most knowledgeable person of his era. One of the signs of this character is his indifference to money or material things. Thus, if there is a claimant who commits sins and he lacks knowledge and he goes after material things, even if he does some sort of magical act, these things are like some divine, it looks to be a divine act, it is actually a magic. Third thing, it's necessary that the extraordinary act performed by the person should be through the might and power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If he uses some tools and instruments, or if he undertakes training or for performing those acts, it's obvious that they are not miracles. Miracles are performed by the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they don't require any practice or training. As we have seen with Nabi Musa alayhi salam with the staff of Musa. He did not train to do anything. Allah told Prophet to throw the staff down and it became as a serpent. It says many jurists are of the opinion that countering one magic spell by the other magic spell is permitted. If an impostor claims that prophethood by performing magical tricks, magic can be used to expose his falsehood. Or if a sorcerer casts a spell on someone or binds them, if a person knows how to break that spell, he's permitted to unbind that person. It's related that Isa ibn Shaqfi came to Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, said, may my life be sacrificed for you. I am a magician and magic is my occupation. With the earnings of magic, I have even performed Hajj. And now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored me by meeting you, but now I am regretful of those things I was doing. Is there any way that I can achieve salvation? Imam said to untie and not to tie. They said that the apparent meaning of Imam's words is that he can use his powers that he knows to counteract magical spells of other magicians, but he must not himself initiate this type of sorcery. So some fuqaha are of the opinion that this can be used only under special circumstances when there's no other alternative to solve that issue. It says initially, invocations or dua and amulets must be tried to nullify these magical spells. And we have many of these instances with amulets in Mafatihul Janan in one section, I believe towards the end of the first volume or the end of the second volume. It's toward the end. It's dealing with different type of dua and amulets. Like we have Harz al-Jawad, for example, these type of things. Says a person came to Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam and complained that a spell was put on him. Not Imam Ali, but the person is complaining to him about it. Imam Ali alayhi salam told him to write down certain dua on the skin of a deer and keep it with him so that the spell may not affect him. It's in the name of Allah and by Allah, in the name of Allah, and as Allah has willed, in the name of Allah, there is no might or power except by Allah. Musa said, Allah shall soon falsify the magic of those who have come with magic. Indeed, Allah does not improve the affairs of transgressors. Then the truth became manifested and the falsified and what they had done. And the truth triumphed and they were disgraced. So this is what he told him to write on the skin of the deer and keep it with him. He also advised reciting certain dua, a certain amount of times to safeguard against magic and oppression of the ruler. This same dua can be recited 7 times after Salatul Layl and before the Salatul Subh. It says if you recite this 7 times, it protects one from the evils of magic. It says, in the name of Allah and by the help of Allah, soon we shall strengthen your hand by your brother and appoint for you a force by which their mischief will not harm you. Move ahead with our signs, you and your followers will triumph. And the last thing to finalize this chapter about magic and sorcery, it says in the book Qasas al-Ulama, or History of Ulama, there's an antidote of the period of Abbas the Safavid. It says a Christian king sent a message to Abbas with the message that he may be given a chance to debate with Muslim scholars, and if he defeats the Muslim scholars, they must all accept Christianity. So now the person sent by the Christian king had some powers which he was able to guess accurately what others held in their fists. The scholars were invited to debate with him, and they included one of the scholars, Mohsen Faiz. When the debate started, the scholar, Mohsen, he said that the Christian king has sent an ordinary man instead of a religious scholar to debate with us. So the envoy, they brushed the remark aside and told him to hide something in his fist so that he can prove his miraculous powers. So Mohsen kept in his fist tasbih made from turbata Imam Hussein alayhi salam, and he held this in his hand and challenged him to guess. Told that Christian person, guess what is in my hand. The man thought for some time, but he kept quiet, couldn't say anything. When the scholar urged him to keep speaking, he said, according to my knowledge, there's a piece of Jannah, a piece of paradise, the soil from paradise in your hand. But I'm astonished, where did you get it and how did it come into your hands? Subhanallah. The scholar Mohsen, he said, you are right. It's the dust from the grave of Abu Abdullah Hussein alayhi salam, who was the grandson of our Prophet. Your statement itself proves that the Imam of the Muslims was on the right, so now you have to accept Islam. Subhanallah, the way that ulama debated. He said the Christian king followed his conscience and he ended up becoming a Muslim. And he used a very good method to bring him towards Islam. We know that he says this because we have a riwayat that the Jannah was created from the nur of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So we see that we call the Karbala like a Jannah because a part of Jannah is in Karbala because the Jannah was created from nur of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. So it says, he ends this chapter, he says, it must be kept in mind that even under the circumstances like this one that's described, where the person proves superior to the Christians who had extraordinary powers, it's necessary that the person has the 3 necessary qualifications described. Otherwise, the person is nothing but a sorcerer. So that Christian man, he was just using sorcery in order to trick people and make them accept that he had some divine gift, so he must be on the right religion. But all in reality, he was just using sorcery and magic, which is haram to do. So, alhamdulillah, we finished this chapter. Inshallah, next week we'll start on chapter 32, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa